first we want to start off with, again, sorry, my name is Lena Heckbert, and if Alex wants to quickly introduce himself.
Afternoon, everyone. Alex Ortega.
And I am Work-Based Learning Coordinator at Miramar College. So first we just kind of wanted to provide an overview. This is kind of a shortened version of a SWOT analysis, but just sort of looking at our strengths, looking at challenge areas or growth areas / opportunities as we move forward, and then looking ahead to 2021, especially this year obviously was unexpected for a lot of us, but yeah, kind of talking about some of the ways that we might pivot looking forward. So some of the strengths that we've really utilized here at Miramar College is the collaboration between the Career Center, the Job Placement Coordinator, and Work-Based Learning Coordinator. We came together very early on and just kind of was able to articulate and communicate which areas, I guess, were going to belong to each individual, where there was going to be areas of overlap, and how we were going to connect with each other. And we've talked about it before, but we really are each other's advocates in different meetings and in different rooms that the others can't be in. So if I'm in a meeting that the Career Center and Job Placement Coordinator is not in, I'm making sure that I'm pointing to their strengths as well, and vice versa. Being able to touch base with all the departments on campus at this point, and being able to evaluate what work-based learning opportunities are currently available. And then we've also been able to assist in incorporating either work-based learning, career development resources, or soft skills development within the majority of the departments on campus. So some of the departments have been more receptive to career development resources as opposed to full developed work-based learning opportunities. Some have been more open to soft skills and the new world of work training that we offer as well. And so I've been able to kind of connect at least some part, even if it's not a fully developed work-based learning opportunity. Ways that we kind of want to, I guess, areas that have been challenging, but also areas that we want to move forward in would be in reporting. So we're hoping SG21 plays a big role in that and helps us with some more consistency in reporting. Working with the STEM department as well. I'm excited moving forward. Just being able to connect with the dean and really talk about what work-based learning within the STEM department would look like moving forward. I differentiated with biotech. Biotech has a very robust work-based learning program that they include, but as far as the rest of the STEM department. Overall, just communication, miscommunication, and places of disconnect when it comes to work-based learning. I think these are things we've talked about definitely within the community of practice, but yeah, just people not even fully understanding what work-based learning is as far as faculty and being able to clarify that. So I kind of mentioned earlier, sometimes when I talk about work-based learning, it's really career development resources that are coming up in the conversation, like resume building. But moving forward, I think we've been able to connect with Kevin and talk a little bit more. Kevin and Chris have been helpful and being able to talk more about what would be helpful moving forward and how to overcome some of those barriers. And then soft skills development as well. I was hoping New World of Work would have taken off a lot bigger than it has at this point, honestly, but we still have the resources, we still have it, and it's still something that we utilize. And I'm just hoping that's something that faculty continue to utilize and understands the resource that's there. And then looking ahead at 2021, kind of wanting to really utilize the work-based learning continuum as a place of conversation and talk about, for instance, which work-based learning opportunity would be right for your course, or even on an individual level. So there's really this understanding of the continuum. Where do those A-level opportunities fall into place in the student's college career? Where do those C-level opportunities and everything in between, and why is the continuum important? I was looking at Alex's job placement intake form and wanting to create something similar for internships, and then also wanting to have really a lot more collaboration. And I'm excited for next year, and there's been a lot more talk for the departments who have been doing a lot of the work-based learning already, really wanting to expand this and wanting to collaborate and just optimize resources as they continue to develop work-based learning opportunities within their own department. Next slide, please. All right, so this is MAP where there's student request for work-based learning opportunity. If a student's referral or is requesting a work-based learning opportunity, most likely they were referred to my office either from the job placement coordinator, the career center, or a faculty member. I kind of use this key at the bottom to kind of differentiate the data point collection. So in our maps, we use the star to indicate when data was going to be collected. And then I also, because I mentioned our collaboration between the job placement coordinator, career center, and work-based learning coordinator is really one of our strengths and something that we really utilize. I use the triangle to kind of describe where the communication is happening. And so a lot of times students are referred to me either by job placement coordinator or career center. Then I am assessing, so are we looking at exploration, preparation, or training? You know, where in the continuum are we looking? And do I have something in place or am I building something new? So I have a database of opportunities I've already collected and worked on and know are available. Along that though, you know, especially obviously this year, just that second piece I'm asking is how has remote learning affected these available opportunities? So for instance, a big one that I know a lot of our students are missing out on are allied health majors and the fact that they're really no longer able to volunteer in the hospital setting. That was something a lot of like allied health majors really took advantage of. It's really where we referred students as an opportunity to get to know different aspects of the hospital and healthcare profession. And just obviously right now, we can't have extra bodies in the hospitals. And so that's not an opportunity that's really available. But we've been able to do other events around allied health this semester. Next, an opportunity is selected. So I'm the one who's kind of, because I also work in the Career Center, a lot of times I'm doing a lot of the preparation. So for instance, if a student is going to be doing an informational interview, I'm the one who's helping them develop their resume or, either developing their resume or like if they're sending out a professional email or wanting to even practice their informational interview before they're in front of a professional. I do a lot of that. Sometimes I might refer them to the Career Center if it's something specific, or I know there's an upcoming workshop that would really be helpful, but a lot of times I'm doing that. And then always looking for opportunities to either expand or invite others along. So for instance, I had a few students this semester who were interested in doing informational interviews with in engineering. And so instead of just doing a one-on-one informational interview, it was kind of like a group setting a little bit. So it's just, well, it was just two of them and then the aerospace engineer. But they were both able to do that together, and then still were the ones like kind of taking the lead as far as asking questions along the way and developing those skills like you would develop through an informational interview. But again, I was able to kind of optimize time and invite another student along instead of just focusing on one individual student. And then at the end, I assessed the opportunity. So what was the student's original goal? If they were wanting, so for instance, with the aerospace engineer, the student was really, I'm trying to decide between aerospace engineering and mechanical engineering and wanted to know some of the differences. So was that goal met? Does the student have a better idea of differences, have a clear path, able to now move forward successfully in one of those? He did choose aerospace engineering. And so assessing the opportunity, if they're referred to me by the job placement coordinator, making sure I'm definitely bringing them back around to Alex and connecting them through email, and possibly also in that assessment, there might be times where I'm wondering if another work-based learning opportunity would be appropriate. So for instance, after the student completed the informational interview, there was some other scholarship and internship opportunities I was able to pass along as well. And then a lot of times I'm also following up with faculty. So our bigger vision is that work-based learning really becomes part of curriculum and is embedded in the courses. And a really good testimony is when students have an enjoyable work-based learning experience and are telling me that they would like to see more of this in their classes, then that's something, a tool I can bring along to faculty. So sometimes it's also like usually asking the students permission and then asking for like formal quotes or testimonies from the students. Next slide, please. All right, and then like I said before, faculty request is really where I envision the majority of work-based learning happening, and hope there's a time where work-based learning is happening just as a part of coursework. But so starting with faculty request is a lot of times just starting with the power of influence or word of mouth. For instance, we started these kind of panel discussions that we would have, but it was a combination between the Transfer Center and work-based learning. And so the Transfer Center would come and talk about different transfer opportunities within the department. So for instance, we did one with anthropology earlier this year. And then after that, the Transfer Center would also have resources as far as transferring from 2-year to 4 years in anthropology or some of the other related 4-year degrees. A lot of faculty that like caught their attention, and other departments started seeing that and wanting that. Like I said, we actually started with nutrition, and then after we did it with nutrition, a lot of other faculty from different departments started requesting those. So that's kind of just where I've started a lot of, and rely heavily on just showing examples, and then hoping it catches people's attention, and then people at the very least are also able just to see what that looks like. I've attended department meetings recently, or this semester, guided pathways meetings, as well as our general equity dialogue have also been really powerful. I think work-based learning is equity work, and so as we're having those conversations, it's a really good segue and has actually opened up a lot of doors as well. You know, as faculty are talking about how can we, you know, make adjustments in our courses, or what can we bring into our courses to make sure students are receiving, all students are learning and being able to also see themselves in these majors and in this course. And that's usually an entry point to discussion about work-based learning. And then also partnering with job placement coordinator and career center when appropriate. So for instance, with the career center, they had an internship fair that they were doing, but you know, they really wanted this to be specific, and really wanting it to be an opportunity for students to prepare for on-site interviews. So we actually, through the work-based learning office, we help also prepare them for mock interviews at the same time. So before they actually participated in the internship fair, they had to go through these mock interviews. And then next is kind of assessing work-based learning opportunity that'd be appropriate from faculty requesting while empowering them at the same time. So same thing as I mentioned with the student, I'm looking at the continuum. What is the faculty want? Are we exploration? Are they want to do something more along the lines of preparation or training? And also having to do with what course level they're teaching. If it's mostly first years, fall semester, then it's probably going to be along exploration. If this is a course that most students take while they're already in their major, then we're probably looking at maybe preparation and training. Also, is there a problem I can solve, or is there room for collaboration, is also a question I'm also asking along the way. And again, how has remote learning affected these available opportunities? So this semester, I knew one of the anthropology professors actually usually takes a field trip to the zoo, and I knew obviously that wasn't happening this semester, but I asked her, you know, if she still would be interested in virtually having, like, talking to a zookeeper. And so we were able to arrange for someone to come, and it was actually someone who specializes in chimpanzees, a veterinarian who specializes in chimpanzees, was able to talk to her class. And it was a big highlight for her as well as for her students. And so, yeah. And then after that, we're looking at the work-based learning opportunity that's selected. I've kind of taken this model from, so nurses call this the teach back model. So if you've ever been in an extended stay at like a hospital or whatnot before they send you home, and you do like different administer medicine or do any sort of procedures back at home, they have this model called see one, do one, teach one. So first you watch them do one, and then you do one yourself, and then you teach it back to them. And that's kind of the loose model I've adopted for work-based learning with faculty. So for instance, I had an information technology faculty member who I don't think wasn't necessarily a real champion for work-based learning, but also was open to any sort of opportunities in the class. So I started off by bringing a guest speaker into his class. And he actually was really excited. Like after seeing the guest speaker, I think that's when things really came alive for him, because he was like, oh, this isn't just something extra I'm doing. He was talking about like, yes, this is a recruiter for a tech company, but they're talking about the exact things that we were talking about in our unit this past week. Like, and students can really see that connection now. And so now this faculty member is super gung-ho about work-based learning and has kind of taken that guest speaker that we've had and now brings them back every semester. Majority of the planning is done at the beginning of the semester or the end of the previous semester. So just logistically speaking, right now I'm looking at spring 2021. And that's just going back to that communication piece. Career Center is developing their calendar. I'm developing my calendar. Alex has, people he's going to be connecting with for, employers that he wants to connect with next semester. And so we're all strategically looking at those areas and just making sure that there's no overlap or whether or not there's places that we can support each other and expand a little bit. But yeah, so that's, generally speaking, next would be to select a specific work-based learning opportunity and to be able to move forward with it. And then after the work-based learning opportunity has been selected, then it's testing, assessing, and reviewing. So I have a student learning outcome assessment I developed that I also administer sometimes, and that's more so I can take back to faculty in the future and just for my own knowledge, is learning happening through these opportunities that we're developing, or are there ways that I can pivot or do something different. Also utilizing SG21 this semester to just document, and then I have my own personal notes as well that I keep. Looking overall at the faculty, so going back and having evaluation with them. Did this work-based learning opportunity, was it what you were expecting? Was it helpful to your class? What would you like to see more of? Or what would you like to, if there's anything different I could do? And always looking for opportunities to expand. And so, as I mentioned, a lot of our departments are some of them are at the point where they're looking for collaboration. So for instance, child development, I've done a lot of different work-based learning with them, and they're looking, because child development especially overlaps with so many other fields, they kind of want to do now this next semester where they bring on guest speakers, but kind of like looking at child development side, but also looking at another department. So like, for instance, psychology meets child development, and someone who has a career that kind of marries both of those areas. And then I put this like educate arrow at the bottom of the map here. We've talked multiple times about how often it takes 6 to 8 touches to make a sales conversion. And so I think something that might have been more discouraging, especially in the beginning, was I'd have one conversation and maybe that person, maybe that faculty member wasn't very excited about work-based learning, or so that they didn't have time to include it in their coursework. But I found as I continue to just either talk about it in different contexts or discuss either in different contexts or bring it into different conversations, that maybe the first time we had a conversation about it, it was a busy semester or whatever else was going on, but that maybe 2 or 3 times down the line that they're more open to it. And so all along this continuum, I'm kind of looking for opportunities to educate, starting with like when faculty request. It might start off with, they're requesting something that really isn't work-based learning, for instance, or is more like on the side of the Career Center. So for instance, looking at like a resume workshop, which is still important and still awesome work, but maybe from there we can talk about, well, here's some other opportunities. And just keeping that conversation open, I think, has been really helpful. And so that's why I put that piece at the bottom. Next slide, please.
All right. Lena, did you have anything else you wanted to leave off with?
No, I think for the work-based learning side, I think that was it. You can go into job placement.
Okay. I won't take up too long. I know we're looking at work-based learning, but it is essential to see how job placement plays into work-based learning. As Lena was talking about, job placement and work-based learning, they're very intertwined. Yes, we have different objectives and different roles and responsibilities, but there is a lot of overlap based on what we're doing. So I wanted to start off, everyone, with our lovely process map that we put together as a work group. Everyone's familiar with it. We've worked on it for about a year now, so we know exactly what it is, what we put into it. However, the part that I'm going to be talking about for Miramar and job placement is how I'm actually glad Hanato mentioned the word in the beginning, simplicity. Looking at this map, it can be very easy to get confused and get caught up on the administrative side of it on what we're doing. So when we were looking at the processes for job placement, I was looking at how can I simplify it? Reason being is because when you're looking at this and being a job placement coordinator, it's very easy to get caught up in the administrative tasks. Looking at this, there's over 10 different nodes. And as a job placement coordinator, we're working with hundreds of students, we're working with a handful of employers. It can get very easy to get lost in what we're supposed to do looking at the map. So I was thinking about what can I do to make it easier, but still incorporate everything that we have on this map. Kevin, if you, or Chris, if you will. What I was doing at Miramar is simplified it. Looking at what am I doing with students? What am I doing with employers? And then like Lena talked about earlier, when Lena, myself, and the Career Center came together, what can I do for job placement that makes it easy for me for my own personal job placement process? So I pretty much put it down into 4 different categories that still incorporates the entire map. Looking at the first step, when I receive a student, it can come from a variety of resources. Faculty lately have been great in sending me students. I have to thank the COVID for that because I have been hearing that students have been asking faculty for opportunities, so faculty have been mentioning my name. Lena also does a good job, so work-based learning, referring students to me. And then my third resource for pulling students is looking at our own database, College Central Network. Students are registered on there. If I'm low in students for a certain major or I have an opportunity that comes up, I can use College Central Network to find students. Granted, that's not all the students in the program, but it at least gives me a start. So looking at our map here at the top, the first 3 nodes, that is number 1. Whether it's coming from work-based learning coordinator, faculty, or the database, I'm receiving a student to come to my case study. Going into the second step, that's where Lena was talking about the intake form that I created, and that's where I'm assessing their level of readiness. The intake form does have questions aimed at me determining, are you truly ready to find an entry-level job? And it can be simple questions such as, do you have a current up-to-date resume? Do you have reliable transportation? What's your commute range? Do you have any prior experience related to your major? Do you have any other educational certifications related to your major? Do you have any barriers to employment? All of those questions help me determine whether that student is ready. And depending on what they're marking on that assessment form, that tells me which way they're gonna go. So if I go into step 3, if they are ready, I'm tracking that student from beginning until they tell me they got their, or they started their job. Prior to COVID, it was always done by email and phone. Phone was usually my preferred because it was quick to give a phone call and just get an update. Email, I know sometimes students don't check until late at night when I've already gone home for the day. But I'm tracking them from when I officially pull them under my caseload, when I refer them a job, when they go for an interview, when they get offered the position, until they start that job. They do not get let out of that process because I need to know, did they get employment? Because if they didn't, then they're still on my caseload. Now, going back to the assessment, if I do deem them ready, that's documented in CCN. CCN right now, I feel, is the best way for myself to keep track of that data, because not only do I have access, Lena also has access, and so does our Career Center coordinator. We all have the administrative login where we can pull up a student and we can view those case notes. So if they see a case note from me that says they've met with me and they're good to go, they now know that they're under my case. When they're ready and they are going through the process, I'm putting data in CCN. So I'm putting in there, they got an interview with Qualcomm. I'm putting in there, they were offered the position with Qualcomm for this job, starting on this date, making this much. And then of course, for CCN, they have the option as well to input employment data. So for me, once I know they got employment, that goes in a separate section. So looking at section 3 alone, I just want to point to that. There's 9 different boxes and nodes in section 3, but I'm grouping those all together because when you're looking at what a student is doing, it's basically everything that it goes from their job search process: referral, interview, offer, employment. 4 different steps that I put into one because that for me is tracking how a student is getting employed. Now going into section 4, if a student is not ready, then depending on what they marked on their intake form from the second step, that's where I'm referring to either work-based learning or to the Career Center. If they're telling me that they don't have a resume or an up-to-date resume, or that their interview skills are a little bit off and that's what's preventing them from getting a job, that's my referral to the Career Center to get that job ready, or to get the job readiness aspect taken care of. If they're telling me that they have all that, but they're missing one skill to get an entry-level job, that's going to trigger me to refer to Lena to help get some work-based learning activity done. But either way, I'm referring to one of our other 2 resources, and they're going to come back to me at a later point. So for number 4, if I'm referring to Lena, they have a work-based learning activity done, Lena's referring them back to me. Now it goes back to the second step. I'm reassessing their level of readiness. Since I have that information documented in CCN, I can always pull up again, what was it that I referred them to Lena for? Now I'm making sure I'm doing my due diligence, working with that student and saying, okay, I referred you to Lena because you needed to do an internship. It's done, you have it completed. Now we're gonna move on to section 3. We're gonna start looking for a job for you. When it comes to talking to other aspects, so if Lena referred me a student, of course, when a student gets employment, we're excited. Now, job placement coordinators, that's our ultimate goal, that's our job, get students employment. So I want to tell Lena about that. So when it comes to do any other staff need to be notified, I think it's more of one of those lines where it's just second nature. When someone refers us a student, we want to tell them they got a job because they referred us for employment. We want to tell them it was successful. They got a job in their field. This is the start of their career. The running joke is hopefully I never hear from them again because they got a job in their field and they're just going to excel from there. So going back to my whole thing about simplicity, it's all about how can we make it easy for us on our own campus. For me at Miramar, this is how I did it. It was taking a look at our process map that we created and just saying, how can I group them so that when I'm working my role and working with students and employers, I just know now what am I supposed to do at this next step. Looking at the maps, I know for some it could be a little bit overwhelming because we have so much information. How can I simplify it? This is how I did it at Miramar, and like Lena was talking about, it's all about communication. Looking at the first step and the 4th step, how am I communicating with Lena for work-based learning and our Career Center? If we have a drop in communication, then that's where problems arise. That's where students can get lost in the gaps because if I'm not communicating with Lena about referring a student back, that student just fell through and now they get a little bit frustrated because they didn't hear from either myself or Lena. Did anyone have any questions so far about how I put them in 4 different stages?
Alex, why don't we hold questions till the end, if that's okay?
No worry. So that's pretty much what I did for work-based learning, or not for a job placement. And I know Lena's going to take it back over for when we do employer engagement.
I'm feeling a little bit more confident in my bandwidth abilities. So hopefully I don't cut out. But if I do start, please let me know and I'll turn my camera back off. But anyway, so these are just, as Alex said, I'm going to talk a little bit about our guiding practices for employer relations. So whether or not an employer reaches out to us or we reach out to them, you know, either way, we're communicating with each other and want to make sure that we're, I guess, following certain principles at Miramar College that, and similar to the ones that we discussed just in our community practice and work group. So a lot of us, you know, that first contact is either coming from, maybe it's a personal contact. So Alex, myself, Mona Patel and the Career Center all have, you know, our personal contacts that we've been able to network with. Now that we have NEPRIS, using that has actually been helpful because that's a centralized database that we can connect with, and it's professionals who specifically are looking at work-based learning opportunities. I know I say employers a lot, even though I work on the work-based learning side, but really what I'm talking about is just professionals in general. Intentional networking. So this is a big piece where we're probably communicating the most. So Alex, you know, might look ahead at the next semester. Here's some specific, in his case, employers I want to connect with and possibly bring on campus. And then he's also looking out, you know, if he's the one connecting with them, then he's looking out if there's work-based learning opportunities and vice versa. And then previous events / established contacts again. The Career Center was on our campus before Alex and I were in our roles. And so they especially have like a database of people they've already connected with. So a lot of us is Alex and myself checking in with the Career Center. Is this someone that Miramar already has a contact with? And then assessing the relationship. So as I mentioned, is there already a contact on campus, and trying our best, not just with the Career Center, but also with other faculty, and are there additional opportunities? So for instance, there's a company, and Kashi has done a lot with our campus as far as work-based learning. We've had their food scientists come onto campus and do like cool demonstrations with our students. And recently they had some job opportunities come their way, and they forwarded them on to me, and then I was able to pass them on to Alex. And then just documenting those relationships as best as we can. So as I mentioned, NEPRIS is kind of a centralized database that I utilize for work-based learning. College Central Network is a big one as well. With College Central Network, the employer does need to be the one to create an account there. So we can't create an account for the employer. So even if Alex has a connection and he wants to enter them, the employer has to already have an account. So that's kind of one why we can't just use CCN solely, but also all three of us have our personal notes, and especially Alex and myself are really keeping track of specifically which professionals and organizations in the San Diego area have we been able to connect with. That's it.
Great.
And I see your thing in the chat, Genesis. I'm gonna upload a rough draft that I created just because I don't want to put if I put the SurveyMonkey links in, then I think you have to go through and fill it out, and then that information is going to show like on our database that someone's trying to fill out the SurveyMonkey. But so just know this was a little bit of a rough draft, but it gets you an idea of the kind of questions I'm asking.
Thank you so much, Lena.
Great. So thank you, Lena and Alex. Questions, comments, feedback?
And I'm actually going to pull the PowerPoint presentation back up. So if you have a question about a specific section and you'd like me to go back to it, just let me know and I'll pull back that slide back up.
I was going to say that I like that Lena spoke about a SWOT analysis, and I think that really provides some good perspective as to what's working for them and what opportunities they're facing. I thought that was good.
I really like that they created a model for us to look at, which is excellent. What are the impressions? You know, they set the bar pretty high here. Sorry about that. Anybody?
Yeah, I agree that they set the bar high, and I thought it was an excellent, very easy to understand way to depict the process and show how it flows and potentially where those challenges can arise.
Yeah. So one of the things that really stood out to me that I appreciated through the model that they created was the triangle. And so it shows that intentional communication amongst their team. And it shows how important it is that they're always on the same page working together, especially with like employer engagement and working with students. So I really appreciated that aspect of it.
I really like how you guys are clearly doing this work on a daily basis, because not only can you explain it big picture, but you also have just great examples of interactions you've had with faculty members or staff members or students as well. So it's good to see that these processes are really actually being applied every day, which is really what we want. So that's really great.
Absolutely.
Pavel, you wanted to share something?
Yes, I think that thank you and colleagues for for putting these examples as a methodology. That's the most important thing for us, and that we are learning is a methodology that is being followed. And of course, not all the colleges will have similar structure, and that's ideally should be some like this, and bringing that first case management approach, which is the most valuable thing I see here in Lena and Alex's presentation, is how they are keeping that constantly case management approach and coaching approach for the assignment. And I agree. This example is really, it's going to be really hard to compete with, but I honestly appreciate that they put it that they gave us this opportunity to reflect on what we are doing, because we already have our processes maps in place, which is something good, with the structure and the hows and when and all the steps to follow. So just a matter of putting it together. So thank you so much.
I just wanted to share that I really enjoyed the different levels of the information. I remember, I guess it was last month when Molly and Kevin were kind of talking about this activity, and for those who may not be pursuing the next round of funding, how important it is just to be able to practice talking about your process. And obviously there's different levels of what you would say to different audiences, and today our audience wants to know a lot of the details, which is helpful, and you definitely covered them based on that rubric. But I also really, I think you did a nice job of letting us see how you can summarize at a high level. I think about just the way, Alex, you sort of broke out the 4 buckets, and then even just these key methodologies, as Pavel mentioned, of, the assessment of it, sort of that case management approach and sort of your key questions that you're asking. That's all very digestible. And, thinking about an external audience, an employer audience, of just like, if someone, a president, anyone wanted to know, like, well, how are you guys doing this? I can really see how you would easily summarize this process to just a couple key bullets. And it really has to do with that internal communication, the connection of job placement, work-based learning, career center, and this assessment approach, and then those buckets and everything. And I just sort of thought that was nice to be able to see that and get some of the weeds at the same time, right? Because as practitioners, we want to know actually, how are you doing this? But it was nice to see both levels. So I just really appreciated that. And I know as practitioners, we can get stuck in those weeds and it can be very hard to summarize. So it's just a good example of moving towards being able to go up and down that ladder of abstraction, how helpful that can be.
Thank you, Amrita. Any questions or feedback? We appreciate the comments and the support. Any areas or feedback that was in the presentation?
No, she doesn't like slime. I thought you just said that.
Okay. Well, obviously we can add more comments and questions and so forth to the notes. or to the chat. So please plan on doing that. Lena or Alex, any parting words based on the feedback that that you've received?
No parting words. I mean, great feedback. Thank you all for those kind words. I mean, it wasn't a easy process that we go. It definitely took time. I know Lena can definitely agree where there was countless hours of meeting with not just her and I, but with all three of us and with Ben included to get this process down. And even though it's still not perfect, we still have room for improvement. I mean, we've come a long way in building this so that all three of us know what we're doing. And if we know what we're doing, the student is benefiting from that.
Great. Thank you, Alex. Lena, any parting words before we transition in the agenda?
Just gonna say I prepared for harder questions. We're supposed to ask some hardballs, but no. I just also echo what Alex said. Yeah, and I think this was, hopefully for us at least, it was just more of a good exercise to articulate what we're already doing. And so hopefully everyone has the same experience.
Yeah, I think the hard questions are one of the hard questions we probably couldn't answer today in this discussion, but how does this become institutionalized, right? So you've established some wonderful processes. And so I think now it's the next step of like, how do we make this something that's lasting beyond regional funding or beyond whatever the college could contribute? How do we make this last beyond, right? And how do we support our faculty, for example, with work-based learning and teach them to do this even beyond us being here to support them, right? Before we transition, it looks like Vanessa raised her hand.
Yeah, I just have a comment. Great presentation. I was taking a lot of notes here for our group to take back. And one of the questions that I had was like, you mentioned a lot of great opportunities and wishful opportunities for the future. Is there, I know Alex had mentioned something about some of the challenges that you face, especially during COVID and how you transition those. Is there any additional challenges that you foresee, especially during this COVID period or maybe in the future, that you will at some point create an opportunity or turn into an opportunity?
Right now, the current challenge that I've been having since COVID was student engagement. That's been something where I've been talking with Kevin and in the COP and in the work group that I feel that during COVID, because we're virtual now, we've lost that presence a little bit because students had the ability to come and find us on campus. Now that everything's virtual and we don't really leave home, we're still available, but it's not as easy where before they could say, oh, he's in this building in this office. Now it's okay, where do I got to go in Canvas to find his information? So that's been a challenge, I think, where initially that was my biggest one. Recently, faculty have been really, really great in helping me out. That's where my biggest goal was, how can I get all of faculty on board with sending students my way? And when I was talking about the process map initially in the presentation, I believe that's where students are now not forcing them, but kind of getting the faculty to remember like, oh, we do have a job placement coordinator. This student's asking me for opportunities because they either lost their job or they were laid off or they were fired. We have a job placement coordinator. Here's his information, reach out to him. So in the past 2 months, I've been seeing an influx of students coming in, which is great. I love being busy. So now it's 4 or 5 appointments a day when I was getting maybe 4 or 5 appointments a week. So now it's really starting to pick up. And I would probably say a challenge still is accountability. I can't go flag them down on campus. I can't go to their class. It's more of I can only send an email now. So now it's about the accountability of here's an opportunity. I need to get a response from you ASAP. Please check the email and communication. That's probably my 2 biggest challenges where hopefully it'll get rectified soon.
Thanks, Alex. Amrita, you had your hand raised?
Oh yeah, I was thinking about, you know, again, like how awesome this presentation was, but thinking about like, you know, the common challenges and, you know, some of the comments about how, oh, you know, hard bar to meet and the differences at every institution. And I was just sort of thinking how, you know, even though our contexts are really different within each system or institution, some of those challenges or opportunities and then planning next steps are really, we have very much in common when it comes to, as Kevin pointed out, like how do you ensure that this is really institutionalized, and how do you work with faculty in a really deep, meaningful way within their programs and really strengthen those the processes. And I was thinking about you know, as part of these presentations, and I apologize because I didn't take a look at the rubric really carefully, but as a listener, thinking about how we could flag those common challenges and really think about you know, follow-up discussions to build out, you know, not only all the stuff that's working, but really say, okay, across these presentations, these were commonalities that there's opportunity to work on, even if our systems look really different. And I think that's always an important element. So even if you have a totally different model than Miramar, you're probably going to have very similar challenges, right? And it's just how we address them, I think can be really helpful. And I asked to go back to this slide because I was like, I remember that they had opportunities or challenges. I was like, what were they again? Because I lost sight of them after all the great graphics. I was like left on such a high note. But obviously every group does have those challenges, and you know, something to think about and how we share and address regionally.
Totally agree. Thank you, Amrita. I think if we were to look at these opportunities, it's probably consistent on every campus, right? And if we had the challenges section, it'd probably be similar or the same. So thank you.